My name is Michael Chen, and I'm about to tell you a story that taught me the most profound lesson about fairness, family, and the unexpected ways love manifests itself. I still remember the day my twin sister Rebecca and I opened our acceptance letters to Johns Hopkins Medical School. We were sitting at our parents' kitchen table in our modest home in Cleveland, the same table where we'd studied together through countless nights of high school and college. Our hands were shaking as we tore open those envelopes. When we both screamed with joy, our mother Patricia cried happy tears, while our father David just stood there with his arms crossed, a slight smile on his weathered face. That was typical of Dad, always the stoic one, showing love through actions rather than words. Rebecca and I had been inseparable our entire lives. We shared everything, the same birthday, the same dreams of becoming doctors, even the same determined spirit that pushed us through organic chemistry and physics, when other students were dropping like flies. But there was one significant difference between us. Rebecca had always been what you might call the golden child, not in a malicious way, but she had this natural charm, this way of making people feel special. She could walk into a room and light it up. I was quieter, more introspective, the one who observed rather than commanded attention. Our parents loved us both, I never doubted that. But there was something in the way they looked at Rebecca, something extra. Medical school was brutally expensive. Between the two of us, we were staring down almost $500,000 in student loans. Our parents ran a small hardware store, the kind of mom-and-pop shop that was slowly being squeezed out by big-box retailers. They weren't poor, but they certainly weren't wealthy. The day we left for Baltimore, Dad pulled me aside while Mom was fussing over Rebecca's suitcases. "Son," he said quietly, his calloused hand on my shoulder. "We're proud of you both. We'll help however we can." I nodded, grateful but not expecting much. I knew the financial reality. The next 8 years were a blur of lectures, clinical rotations, sleepless nights, and the constant anxiety of mounting debt. Rebecca and I studied together when our schedules aligned, quiz each other on symptoms and treatments, supported each other through the inevitable moments of self-doubt that plague every medical student. She went into pediatrics, drawn to the innocence and resilience of children. I chose internal medicine, fascinated by the complex puzzles of adult disease. We both excelled, both earned our MD degrees, both matched to excellent residency programs. The day we graduated, walking across that stage in our caps and gowns, I felt a mixture of pride and relief and crushing worry about the financial burden ahead. Our parents made the trip to Baltimore for the ceremony. Mom was crying again, and even Dad's eyes looked a bit misty. After the formalities, we went to a nice restaurant to celebrate, something we rarely did given everyone's tight budgets. Halfway through dinner, Dad cleared his throat. He had that look, the one he got when he was about to say something important. "Rebecca, Michael," he began, "your mother and I want you to know how incredibly proud we are of both of you. 8 years of sacrifice, 8 years of dedication, and now you're both doctors." He paused, glancing at Mom, who was smiling nervously. "We've been putting money aside," he continued, "not much, but something. We've managed to save enough to pay off one of your student loans completely." My heart jumped. I looked at Rebecca, whose eyes had gone wide. "One of us," Dad said, looking between us, "will graduate debt-free. I want you both to understand. This isn't about love or favoritism. This is about practical reality. We could only do this for one of you." I held my breath. "Rebecca deserves it more," Dad said simply. "She's always worked harder, always been more dedicated. Michael, you're brilliant, son, but your sister has something special. We're paying off Rebecca's loans." The restaurant noise seemed to fade away. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I forced a smile, nodded, said congratulations to Rebecca. who looked shocked and guilty and grateful all at once. Mom reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "We love you both the same," she whispered, "but this was the right decision." I excused myself to the bathroom and stood there staring at my reflection, this newly minted doctor with $250,000 in debt, while his twin sister got to start her career completely free. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. The next few months were awkward. Rebecca and I started our residencies in different cities, she in Boston, me in Chicago. We talked less frequently, and when we did, there was this elephant in the room neither of us wanted to address. I threw myself into my work, took extra shifts, started a strict budget to tackle my loans. Every month when I made that payment, I felt a small stab of resentment. Not toward Rebecca exactly, but toward the situation, toward the unfairness of it all. 2 years passed. I was working a particularly grueling shift in the ICU when I got a call from Mom. It was early morning, and phone calls at that hour are never good news. "Michael," she said, her voice breaking, "it's your father. He had a massive heart attack while opening the store. You need to come home." I was on a plane within hours. When I arrived at the hospital, Rebecca was already there, still in her scrubs from her own shift. She'd driven 4 hours straight through the night. Dad was in critical condition. The next week was a nightmare of medical consultations, difficult decisions, and the horrible reverse. All of roles as Rebecca and I became the ones interpreting test results for Mom, instead of being the kids who needed protecting. Dad survived, but barely. He needed bypass surgery, extensive rehab, and could never work the same way again. The store, already struggling, would have to close. Mom was devastated, not just about Dad's health but about losing the business they'd built together over 30 years. One evening, Rebecca and I were sitting in the hospital cafeteria. Both exhausted, both running on coffee and adrenaline. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "I felt horrible about the loan thing. Every day I feel guilty. I wanted to say it wasn't a big deal, but I couldn't lie to her. It hurt," I admitted, "but I understood the practical reasons." Rebecca shook her head. "No, you don't understand." She took a deep breath. "Michael, they didn't pay off my loans because they thought I was better or more deserving. Dad told me the real reason a few weeks after graduation. He made me promise not to tell you." I felt my chest tighten. "What reason?" She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Dad was already having heart problems 2 years ago. He knew, or at least suspected, that he might not have much time left. He didn't want me to know because he was afraid I'd drop out of medicine to help with the store. The reason they paid off my loans instead of yours was because they knew I wouldn't be able to handle the financial burden if something happened to them." Rebecca's voice cracked. "Dad said you were stronger, more resilient, more capable of handling adversity. He said you had always been the one who figured things out, who adapted, who survived. He knew that even with debt, you'd find a way to thrive. But he worried about me. He said I needed more support, more security." I sat there stunned. All this time I thought it was about being less valued, when actually it was the opposite. It was Dad's way of protecting both of us. He knew I could carry a heavier load, so he gave me the burden he believed I could handle. I started to cry, right there in that fluorescent-lit cafeteria. Rebecca grabbed my hand. "I wanted to tell you so many times," she said, "but I promised. Dad." And part of me was ashamed that I was seen as the weaker one. "Neither of us is weaker," I said finally. "We're just different." Dad saw that and did what he thought was best. Over the next few months, as Dad slowly recovered, our family had many long conversations. Dad, now humbled by his brush with death, was more open than he'd ever been. He apologized to me with tears in his eyes. "I never meant to hurt you, son," he said from his hospital bed. "I gave you the harder path because I believed you could walk it." That belief, that confidence, was its own kind of gift. I forgave him immediately because I finally understood. Love isn't always about equal distribution of resources. Sometimes it's about understanding each person's unique needs and capacities. Rebecca and I came up with a plan together. We would both contribute to help Mom and Dad financially. Rebecca's lack of loan payments meant she could send money home each month. My budgeting skills meant I could help them reorganize their finances and plan for a future without the store. We were a team again, each contributing what we could. 5 years later, I'm happy to report that Dad is doing well. He volunteers at a community health clinic, now using his lifetime of practical wisdom to help others. Mom has started a small online business selling handmade crafts, something she'd always wanted to do. Rebecca is a beloved pediatrician in Boston, known for her warmth and dedication. And me, I'm still chipping away at my loans, but I'm also an attending physician now, teaching residents, making a difference in patients' lives every single day. The debt doesn't feel like a burden anymore. It feels like a testament to my journey, to the strength Dad saw in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. Last Thanksgiving, when we were all together at Mom and Dad's new smaller house, Dad proposed a toast. "To my children," he said, his voice still a bit weak but full of emotion, who taught this old man that fairness isn't always about equality. It's about giving each person what they need to flourish. Rebecca and I exchanged glances and smiled. We'd both gotten exactly what we needed, even if it took years to understand it. The greatest gift our parents gave us wasn't money. It was the knowledge that we were each valued for who we truly were, seen clearly in all our strengths and vulnerabilities, and loved not despite our differences but because of them. Sometimes the kindest act is trusting someone with the harder path. Sometimes love means believing in someone's strength even when they doubt it themselves. That's the lesson my parents taught me, and it's one I carry with me every single day, both in how I treat my patients and in how I've learned to see myself. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Subscribe to hear more stories about family, forgiveness, and the unexpected wisdom that comes from life's challenges. And please leave a comment below telling me about a time when you discovered a deeper truth behind a situation that initially hurt you. I'd love to hear your story.